What's up, everybody? Mark with Kardavox Academy here, and I'm excited because if you watched the recent reaction we put up, well, it would have been a week ago as of the posting of this video, then you know that I have 3 favorite vocalists, metal vocalists of all time. Now, that's kind of tough because if we're talking like all of metal, then it's like 10. But if we're talking specifically like harsh, sludgy, nasty metal vocals, then my 3 favorites are Johnny Davey, Travis Ryan, and Alex Teyen. And today, we're going to be talking about Alex Teyen. Now, we've talked about Black Tongue on the channel before, but unfortunately, one of my favorite songs on their album, Nadir, or Nadir, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, means the lowest point in somebody's life. One of my favorite songs, The Cathedral, does not have a music video, and so I've held off on doing a video about it for a long time. Because there's always something, you know, it's nice to have something to watch, right? But you know, a lot of people, I recently put up, well, it's actually been a while, like started a new series that I made one and then never touched again, where it's like my favorite metal vocal performances. Maybe these songs aren't trending right now. Maybe they're not like blowing up, but I think that there's a lot to be learned. And they're just performances that even when, you know, because I just like everybody else, I go through cycles of interest, and sometimes I'm not really interested in metal. I'm interested in other things. I'm always interested in Nadir, and I'm always interested in Black Tongue, and I'm always interested in this song, The Cathedral. So we're going to talk about it. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark. I am a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardavox. We're on Metal Blade Records, released an album called Liminal Right. Check it out. It's not like this really, but it kind of is in some ways. Like this is much more aggressive and sludgy. And Kardashev is not quite as aggressive and sludgy, but they both have like certain levels of like oppressive despair written into their soundscapes. So maybe, you know, I'm usually like, it's nothing like this, but check it out. But it kind of is like this, just in like tone and flavor, right? And that's about it. But anyways, I'm also a metal vocal coach. My full-time job, what I do all day, every day, what I have sacrificed my weekends to, I'm just kidding, I don't mind, is metal vocal coaching, right? So I teach people how to make all sorts of cool metal vocal noises, everything simple from like, you know, hey, oh, hey, to things more advanced, you know, but with a foundation of understanding your body, understanding your voice, and all this good stuff. So that's the context, and that's all I know. Now, I'm going to be doing something kind of cool. I'm going to have the video, I'm going to have the video here, and I'm gonna have the lyrics zoomed in because this song actually has one of my favorite metal vocal lyrics ever. It's just disgusting and good, and I love it. So we're gonna have both up. Hopefully it's not too distracting, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. Also, volume warning. Volume warning. This song just starts with really nasty high screams. So just volume warning. Here we go. Now, since I've heard this song before, I know a lot of really good places to pause. I've heard the song a lot. So there are a lot of things here that I'm really enjoying and that I really love about Alex's voice. And one of the main things that I love about his voice is that it just really works very well for this genre of music. You know, now, what I mean by that is essentially, so Black Tongue is mostly, not always, but mostly like very down tempo, very like if you've heard like Parting Soliloquy and the other one, Second Death, there are a lot of these like, you know, dome, da dome, da na na dome, right? Just these big open riffs. And the reason I think that serves so well for Alex's voice is because his voice is very like dirty, right? And I don't mean dirty as in bad. I mean dirty as just like in a lot of crunch, a lot of stuff going on at once, right? He doesn't have like the same like pristinely, finely, you know, perfect uh, um, vocal or harsh vocal tone that you hear in other deathcore artists, which is also really cool. I really like that as well. But it's kind of the difference between like, you know, somebody who's practiced like opera and they just sing these perfect crystal clear notes that are just, they make you weep. And then, you know, old Uncle Joe with his, you know, pipe on the porch and his guitar, and his voice is just sounds like whiskey barrels and life experience, you know. And which one do you like more? As much as I respect opera, I tend to hang out with the Uncle Joes of the vocal world, you know. I tend to gravitate towards that. And so in these open spaces, there's so much nuance in his voice that comes through, right? One thing that's kind of it's not interesting about me, but one thing about me is I teach primarily what not just me, a lot of people call like a voiceless or a breath distortion false chord is a place to start. But letting that voice come through, oh man, does it add so much character and so much dynamic presence just to the voice alone, right? Now, because I have the full album stream pulled up for the lyrics, I can't like go like rewind very easily. I think I could use J and K keys, but you know, I'm not going to go deep into any of the vocals we've heard so far because there are a lot of really great moments, but I want you to kind of think about that. What we have here, and I've actually never spoken to the Plague Father himself. As far as it's ever gone is maybe like an Instagram comment here or there. So I can't say for sure like how he went about learning, but to me, you know, this is the result of someone kind of just following emotion and sound versus focusing in too hard on technique. And I think that even for us, who are very technique focused, that's something we can think about. I also love how he narrows the front of his mouth to really hiss out some of his syllables. Let's keep going and I'll point out some of these moments here. Oh, and as far as that high vocal, because I know a lot of people are going to ask me about it. It sounds a little tight. It sounds a little bit constricted. It also sounds awesome, right? So like, I wouldn't teach somebody to do it that way, but I love listening to it. I always liken it to this. I am like, as a vocal instructor, you know, or think about it like a driving instructor, right? I ain't going to tell you it's a good idea to go 200 on the freeway because it is patently not a good idea. But sometimes when you see somebody doing it, you're like, damn, that's kind of sick, right? So, and you know, even in our own music, in Liminal Right, I have purposefully done screams that were more for emotional impact than safety, and then I just wouldn't perform it that way live. It's a sick sounding high, and I love it. It's very, that very, very false chord high with like sort of a tightened like underneath it. I'm not going to do it, but it sounds very cool. Let's keep going though. I've been talking a lot.
Still to the violence heart and its thundering beat. The Athiols dig on the cloaks with silence. Cast me the shadow of uncertain sleep. The cloud taken, relinquishes spaces and ocean of faces. Spill upon the black of a burial ground. Follow me down.
So this is a good place to pause. So here, one thing you're noticing, I hope you're noticing, is that everything he's doing so far sounds like it is different. It is variations on the same fundamental technique. And if you're thinking that, you would be correct, right? This is you would start this with a very foundational false chord sound. Now, that being said, the foundational false chord sound isn't generally that tricky to get. A lot of the reason that people have a hard time with it is because they either overthink it, right? Or they get there and they think that it's too simple or too like bland sounding. And I always like to remind people, you know, it's playing with an ingredient, right? Like when I'm making, you know, food, I might taste like a spice. I might be like, oh, I've never had this type of paprika before, so I'm like taste it. Of course, that doesn't taste like a finished dish. That would be stupid if I was like, this doesn't taste like goulash, right? Because it's not, but it's an ingredient that I'm going to use in the dish, right? So one of the best ways that we can find this false chord sound, and I go more into detail on this in our false chord fundamental e-course, which you can get on Kardavoxacademy.com. I almost said CarterChefBand.com. Whoops. One of the easiest ways to get this sound is to sort of let your voice do its own thing while you sigh or cough or breathe out. Now, there's a very specific like cough or throat clear that we want to use, and I think of it as like the late night movie clear your throat, right? So let's say I'm up late at night and I'm watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Love that series. So good. Probably the best modern Star Trek series ever. And I take a sip of water, right? I take a sip of water. I might absentmindedly do this. That's what I want. Now from there, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be engaging my core very, very slightly. And my goal is to just feel rattle around the back of my tongue. Right? Around the back of my tongue. Doesn't have to be too high, doesn't have to be too low, just right around there. Now, a new method I've been using with my students is like playfully jogging in place while we do that. So you can hear that as my feet hit the ground, I sort of get like a little like like a little jolt to my voice, right? And that alone is helping me project that false chord a little bit more. So if I do that, now I'm going to add a little bit of abdominal into there. That's your baseline false chord. It's really all it takes, right? If it's taking you a while, don't feel bad. We're all different. But one of the things that Alex does with his voice is he puts so much timbre and tonal work into it to make it sound different, right? Like he's got those wide open false chords that like, honestly, like it comes from putting some twang on there, right? So like if I have my baseline middle of the road false chord, you know, nothing fancy like this, hey, 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 hey. My vocal tract is very neutral. Hey, that's just the way I talk, right? Hey. What if I put like over twang on it? Hey, hey, hey. Hi, everybody. Hi, 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 hi. I like to think of it as like a gangster. I got a Tommy gun say, or like a really bad like Fran Drescher if you ever grew up watching The Nanny, right? It's a terrible, like my impression is terrible. It doesn't matter, right? So I have this hey, 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 follow me down, hey, blah, right? Versus yeah, 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 yeah. Right? A lot of the times to change our distortion, what we really want to change is our placement and our resonance, right? Then he also, well, okay, I love this song and I keep talking a lot. If you've been watching Kardavox Academy for this long, you're used to me rambling on, but let's keep going here and then I'll talk about other things. But listen to that. Listen to what I'm pointing out here, right? Similar like baseline technique, different tones and timbres. Hi, 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 hi. Oi, 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 oi. Transformative. Very cool. Let's keep going. That's a really cool moment there. So, you know, we hear this like open, like false chord sound. Same one we're going to talk about because that's almost entirely what he does, right? Which is interesting because he did a lot of different stuff on their previous album, if I remember correctly. And he has a live playthrough where there's other stuff too. Nadir always struck me as being a more relaxed open vocal album. Anyway, so we have like this, you know, hey, hey, hey. Then when he's doing this hush, writhe, cry, I've actually never tried this before, but he has like this pressed, like grit teeth. Hey. Wow, that's an interesting tone. I'm going to try to go back for that. How do you do that? I didn't go back far enough. Anyway, but it sounds like he's like, it sounds to me like he's kind of like clamped down a little bit, maybe big tongue in the mouth. No, maybe not actually. I might be hearing that wrong. Anyway, I'm not going to go back and cycle through it a bunch of times because, like I said, I've got the whole album pulled up and that would be really hard to do. But that's a good example of how we can actually create a lot of cool tones without an open mouth, right? So oftentimes when you're learning metal vocals or, clean singing, they're talking a lot about opening the mouth. Ah, ah, ah. Keep your mouth open. A lot of my students know that I generally say like you should be able to fit 2 fingers between your teeth, right? But you can also do a lot of cool stuff with your teeth together once you've learned how to manage the differences in airflow that's going to create, right? So if I'm here, I'll do like a higher vocal. Right? You can do a lot of really cool stuff with a more closed mouth and a not tighter jaw, but narrower embouchure, I guess. Now here, I'm going to try to go back. I'm going to click too far because of the nature of this. But here you're going to hear he's going to start adding a little bit of compression, a little bit of strategic tension above the vocal cords to get like a thicker, rumblier sound. And it's going to be very cool. You're going to enjoy it. Check it out. I'm pausing it there and we're going to go back because that's one of the moments of the song and we're just going to listen to it uninterrupted. But you'll notice how at the beginning of that phrase, I don't remember what the lyrics were because I'm terrible with lyrics, right? He had gone from what he's used most of this album or most of this song, right? This, very like, nay, be thy cry, this way, that very punchy, false chord, bleh. Right? That like very open, relaxed, emotionally like delivered false chord. And then just at the beginning, he kind of like slid into this like, right? A little bit of a tighter sound. And then he moved out of it and opened up wide for the word wide. That's a classy move. I think that's really cool, right? This is a difficult thing to do, right? Taking our false chords from hey, I, ha, 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 hey, and it requires a certain amount of strategic tension that I don't generally advise people start with. But if you want to like prep yourself when you get there, it's really beneficial learning how to talk in a very relaxed Kermit the Frog voice, right? So if you're like, man, I really want to make those sounds, but I want to start at the beginning. I want to work through just like the fundamental false chord sound, but I also don't want to, have to relearn everything when I get there. Well, you can go and learn a very basic Kermit the Frog voice. Hey, Kermit the Frog here. Or like maybe it's like kind of like a John C. Reilly or an Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right? It's that sound. Some people describe this as swallowing the vocal. I think if that's helpful, that's helpful. For me, it's easier for me to think of it as narrowing the vocal, right? But essentially what I'm doing, and it makes sense to call it swallowing the vocal, right? Because we're utilizing the tissues above the vocal cords, which close when we swallow. Right? So just different perspectives. But when I do this, there's my open vocal tract. The main thing I'm feeling is a slight squeeze of my tongue and then an incidental lifting of the larynx, right? My larynx lifts very lightly. And then my tongue, right, squeezes a little bit. And I'm not able to show it here, but there's also a little bowl that's created at the back of my tongue. Like you could roll a BB right down this like little valley that gets created. And most importantly, here's the thing with this Kermit voice, if you're going to, over time, maybe not today, but later on, turn your false chords from like a nay, by, say to right, by, say. If you're going to do that, this Kermit voice shouldn't really limit you too much in your singing or speaking ability, right? Because it's like an effect that we're putting on top of our false chords. So, for example, if I do this, I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart decide? A whole new world. You can hear that, like, yeah, that would not be counted as good singing, but I wasn't restricted in my ability to move through my voice, right? So, again, this is a great thing to practice if you want to compress your vocals down the road. Right? That'll take your grunt from Anyways, this moment, y'all, when he says your prodigal son has returned, then we're going to get some more lyrics to the point where he says, follow me down again. One of the hardest moments just on the whole album. Just, it's going to crush your throat and you're going to love it. Or you're going to hate it. I don't know. I love it.
Your prodigal son has returned!
Shut up, bro. Oh my God. That right there, like that's, man. Sometimes when I hear people say metal vocals aren't emotional, I understand because a lot of times the emotional delivery gets lost, right, in the technique. But God damn, if I cannot feel the utter disdain, the poisonous, toxic hatred in his voice, it is so palpable and tangible, right? And I think that you know is something that I have that I share, that that my favorite vocalists share, is that like there's no sacrifice of technique, but God damn, like I feel when I listen to this album, this section, but also this album, like part of me almost feels like he's like standing like on a ledge, you know, and he's just like looking down at me like I'm some like peasant. It's awesome, you know, it's just so cool. So, we're gonna listen to that part again because it's that good, but also like, God, that line, gasping for air in lakes of boiling piss, unable to drown. That's actually a line I use with my students to help facilitate teaching them some emotional delivery, right? Because I can say like, you know,
Lakes of boiling piss.
Yeah, the false chord was right, but so what? Who cares? Nobody's listening to that.
Lakes of boiling piss.
Now, when we do this, it's not just sound mad like he is. At this point, the student and I have talked a lot about resonance shifting, a lot about embouchure, a lot about like tongue positions. So it's not just like, hey, mimic me, because you can do that for free at home. You don't need a vocal coach to just mimic stuff, right? But oftentimes what I'll do is I'll have them get a prop, right? For whatever reason, a prop really helps like get into character, gives you something to like spit at. So I could say, right, you know,
lakes of boiling piss.
Or, and this is how I have them do it, I can kind of like pace back and forth.
Lakes, I'm getting angry. Lakes of boiling piss.
Right, and that sounds way better, right? Now, what did I tangibly do, right? Because we can't, it's not entirely helpful just to say like, well, all you got to do is sound mad, because if that was the case, I wouldn't have a job. Nobody would be coming to me for help, right? We think about the position of the mouth, right? And we think about the resonant coloring, I guess we could say, of the vocal, right? So when I do this, I think about the way he says boiling piss, right? Puh, puh. He's spitting it out. Puh. When I spit out, right? Puh. I make that shape. Puh, puh, puh. So I pair what I hear from the emotional delivery with what I know about vocal technique, right? Which is that it's, if you want to get low tones, it's really helpful, at least with this, to resonate in the front of the mouth. Delicious. Not dropping my larynx. You don't have to. You can. You don't have to. And then I just add that performance element to it.
Lakes of boiling piss.
Another thing you can do is you can practice with your clean voice. You're going to sound stupid. I'm going to sound stupid. If you're watching this and you laugh, you're more than welcome to. In fact, I encourage it. Because if you ain't feeling dumb, you ain't learning metal vocals right. I'm telling you. Right? But if I take this, hey, like some boiling piss, like some boiling piss, I'm overacting. But if I put metal vocals on it, then it sounds cool, right? Like some boiling piss, like some boiling piss, like some boiling piss. Right? And then it sounds very cool. So you can do that with a lot of other things as well. But like, God damn, just a fucking. I feel like you know, he could like rear his head and just like spit acid with how just aggressive and gross it sounds. I love it. Everybody be quiet. We're gonna listen to this part again.
Your prodigal son has returned.
Everybody make stank faces. Get fucking pissed. That bleh is disgusting. One of my favorite blehs of all time. My other favorite bleh comes from a band called LLNN. The song is called Interloper. Maybe that's the one I'll do next. But like, listen to this. It's not a bleh. He's not saying bleh. Like, I think blehs got kind of tired out after a while. Like, you know exactly where one's gonna happen, and like. The vocalist says like this very intentional bleh. They're like, it's like, okay, here comes the bleh, bleh, right? And they're like, yeah, he did the bleh, right? And I get it, you know, bleh, right? I get it. To me, this is just how it comes across, right? This is how it's delivered. I feel, whether or not this is actually true, probably not, but I feel like it sounds like he was so caught up in front of the mic, so in this character, whatever this character is, that was like a legitimate expression of disgust. Probably not. If we're being honest, it probably was like, you know, they were sitting around listening to the song and somebody was like, yo, Alex, go do like a bleh there, but like sound kind of like more like, you know, like you're clearing your throat. Ugh, right? But that's how it feels to me, right? And art is all about how it makes us feel, right? So one of the reasons I like this is, okay, so it's not that he's specifically not saying bleh. It just doesn't sound like he's trying, like this was the bleh moment, right? Also, he's doing more of like a and there's like a little soft palate flapping on the back of the tongue. Right? If you want to get your vocals kind of like that wet sound, you can let your soft palate right? And it sounds like there's a lot of harsh clack going on down here, but what you're hearing is the tongue and the soft palate. Your soft palate's going to be really dropped. You're going to be very like hyponasal, right? Your soft palate's going to be really low. Right? And you'll get that sort of feeling right at the sort of back of the tongue, top of the throat. Anyways, it is like back in the day of ringback tones, I would have been making everybody listen to this, right? Just listen to this bleh. Just, oh, God.
Follow me.
All right, that's Second Death, but like that opening riff, you can't. Like you just can't. Like God, that opening riff to Second Death is so hard. And right after that, right after the end of that song, they're not letting anybody rest. Anyways, that's enough of that. I was trying to remember the pattern, but I was getting it a little bit wrong. So one thing you can do, like let's say you've gotten really good at this like false chord sound, right? You've got your bass line false chord, and you can do just the simple sound.
Hey, this is a false chord.
Right? You can do that. And you can also kind of make it sound a little bit cooler, like, you know,
hey, this is a false chord, and I like getting blah.
Right? So you've got a little bit of character in there, and you want to start adding voice in. There are many ways to do this. Some are more helpful than others. That tends to depend mostly on the student, the person, than the exercise itself, right? Well, that's a whole other topic. But one thing you can do is you can start utilizing this false chord tone as your speaking voice. You know that you're ready for this when your distortion sits fairly high in the back of your throat, right? Base of the tongue, maybe even a little higher. It's hard to get much higher than that with a mid because this is a very chest voice sound. But you know, when your distortion is feeling very high, and you can do these false chord vocals for a long time, and it doesn't affect your voice, you're still able to like ooh, ooh, ah. You're still able to connect like a light, like kind of airy falsetto, ah, hey, without it having to squeeze it together. Then you may be ready to start adding tone under it safely. So one thing you can do, again, I'll be real, y'all, when I'm practicing at home, I'm usually walking around, unless I'm actually tracking myself, just with this old mic, right? And you can buy like a broken one from like, if you just want a prop to use and you're tired of using your hairbrush like an 80s film. I don't know why, to me, just like singing into a hairbrush is such like an 80s, 90s movie thing. I'm usually pacing around with this in my hand just because it kind of helps me get into character. And then I just start talking, right? Start using this as my speaking voice, and I allow my voice to sort of peek through. There are specific targeted exercises that we can use for this, where we go, and we start putting them together. I find that for many students, that's actually a more difficult approach because here's the thing, it's not natural, right? And this whole metal vocal thing isn't really very natural feeling until you get comfortable with it. But if we allow our voice, you know, if we take our voice off the leash for a little bit and we're giving it like guided freedom, right? It's kind of like letting your dog off the leash at the dog park, right? Yeah, it's got some free roam, but there's still a fence, there's still a structure. And in our case, that structure, that fence is understanding of vocal technique and healthy technique. It's the word technique a lot, but it doesn't matter. Then we can just let our voice kind of tell us where it wants to go, right? So let's say I have, I'll keep the mic out of my hand for this, even though normally I would have it because I maybe seeing my mouth might be helpful. But let's say like, okay, here we go. So,
hey, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, and the thing I like about Baldur's Gate 3 is that it's a very creative game with a lot of options to do stuff in combat.
Right, so when that, right, I sort of let my voice creep in. You may have noticed, if you've got a good ear, that sounded a little gatekeepy. I didn't mean it that way. You may have noticed that my voice was kind of around here. Now, I'm not the first one to talk about this, right? But when I talk, you know,
when I stand upon my altar, resplendent in profane glory,
right? It's that like vocal break space. It's a really easy place to put your distortion if you know how to create healthy distortion in the first place. All right, I'm rambling at this point, but really, if you have not listened to Black Tongue, and it's not just Nadir, like their whole discography is very, very cool. This is my favorite album though. And I think that like, I don't know if these dudes are going to come back. I've on Alex Teyen's Instagram, which it's Plague Father. You know, I hear rumors, I hear whispers that there's new Black Tongue coming out, but like, I really hope that that's true. Not to put pressure on the guys or anything, but like, man, it's so, okay, I was about to say something very spicy. Should I say it? I'll say it. Let me think of the way to say it that represents this properly. Creating metal music is not that hard. Before you get mad, I'm not saying it doesn't take practice. I'm not saying it doesn't take skill. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not that hard. Creating metal music that is stand out from the crowd, that is visceral, that like really reaches into somebody's soul and makes them feel something, that is very difficult. And it's all subjective, of course. I recognize this. But Black Tongue certainly does that for me. Like this is one of the albums I will always come back to, no matter how bored of metal I am. This one. Another being Death Atlas. Can't help it. Can't help it. All right, that's enough for me. If you liked it, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in learning how to do some metal vocals, check out KardavoxAcademy.com. Take a peek at the e-course. Take a peek at the one-on-one lessons. There is a pretty significant wait list for those because I'm only one man. Unless we were able to pull in another vocal coach. Because we're going to team up. Get a second person on the books. Teaching vocals. Could happen. I don't know. It doesn't have to be me in the spotlight all the time here on the channel. There could always be other people being like, hey, here's how I do this. Who's to say? But beyond that, thank you so much for watching. I got to prep for my lessons, and then I got to prep for Blue Ridge. I'll be at Blue Ridge Rock Festival. I'm stalling because I just want to listen to more Black Tongue. So that's it. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.